OnePlus flagships have generally been great at performance, but have traditionally had a few certain omissions that stop them from being a top-tier flagship. What happens when OnePlus decides to shed their flagship killer image and instead go all out? Well, the OnePlus 8 Pro is what happens. So how does it fare? I've used it as my primary smartphone for a little over a week, and in this video, I'm gonna take you through the pros, cons, and everything else you need to know about the OnePlus 8 Pro. Hey guys, Ash here from C4A Tech, and if you do end up liking what you see in this video, please subscribe and turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon. Let's now get started. OnePlus have included a lot of nice to haves with the OnePlus 8 Pro. Things that they've omitted in the past, like official dust and water resistance in the form of an IP68 rating, wireless charging. Now, talking about wireless charging, OnePlus's usual line was, it's not fast enough and that's why we skipped it. Now, they've not really gone back on their word. They've spent the time and effort to get fast enough wireless charging before actually including it in their flagship product. This is proprietary charging technology, Warp Charge 30 wireless. Now, if you have a regular Qi charger, the 8 Pro will still charge wirelessly, but slower. And if you do buy this charger, you can charge other phones that support wireless charging, support the Qi standard, but again, it's not going to be quite as fast. By the way, there's also reverse wireless charging to help charge AirPods and the ilk. Now, one area where a nice to have has actually been taken away from us, it's gotta be with the display. Now, don't get me wrong, this display has a lot going for it. It's one of the most color accurate panels out there today. It's got a Quad HD Plus resolution, so it's sharp. It also happens to be quite large at 6.78 inches. It's very bright, so outdoor use wasn't an issue. The refresh rate is a solid 120Hz with 240Hz touch sampling. Now, here's the kicker. Unlike, say, the S20 series, you can run this display at Quad HD Plus and 120Hz at the same time. So, what's the downside? Last year's 7 Pro, it had a pop-up camera, meaning it was all screen, free of any kind of interruptions. This year though, OnePlus has opted to go with a punch hole to the top left. I kinda understand why they had to do it, given the IP68 certification and all that, but this AMOLED panel, it still looks great, but I just can't help feeling it's a minor step back. Now, talking about that punch hole and the selfie camera that's in it, the mechanism, it's changed from last year, but the sensor itself, it's not. It's still that 16 megapixel IMX471. It's paired with an f2 lens. OnePlus has now used this exact setup for 3 generations of phones. The 7, 70 and now the 8. That said, it's still a good sensor though. The detail, the skin tones, they're okay. Now, one thing worth noting is that the video output via the selfie camera is capped at 1080p. It is a minor thing, it is nitpicking, but then again, we are now comparing OnePlus flagships with the iPhones and the S20s of the world. So when they can do 4K and this cannot, I feel it's something worth mentioning. Next, the curved edges, whether it's palm rejection issues or the reflections it causes, it is something that a fair few aren't fans of, especially given that even Samsung has switched back to flat panels. Me personally, I don't mind it. In fact, I actually like how premium it makes the display look, that infinity look, if I'm gonna pick a line from Samsung's marketing. Now, anyway, we did have some black crush issues that are, not us personally, but these are being reported. Under low light, the display starts looking a bit weird. Some people have experienced it. My unit doesn't have it, but it is something to keep in mind though. Now, to make this better, OnePlus have recently capped the lowest brightness setting, so it doesn't go as low as, say, the 7 Pro's panel can. This issue is something OnePlus seems to be working on, so maybe future updates can get us the lower brightness levels back without the black crush issue. But at this point, this isn't something we can say for sure. Talking about low light, there is another issue. Even when you dim the brightness as much as possible, the screen still gets extremely bright in the night when you scan your fingerprint. Yes, I do understand optical scanners need the light, but if other brands are making it work without the display having to blind us, I suppose OnePlus should also be able to do it. Now finally, there's the lack of a true always-on functionality here. This isn't something I actually use a lot, so I'm okay with it not being that. I'm okay with OnePlus's intermittent implementation. But then again, if that is something you're looking for, do keep this in mind. Now, apart from these minor cons, and yes, they are minor cons, the display, it is quite a pleasure to use. Quad HD plus 120Hz. There are no performance issues given that we have a Snapdragon 865 under the hood. Everything here, it feels fluid. The media experience is also excellent thanks to that dual speaker setup. Now, while we are talking about audio, let's also talk about the cellular reception and call quality, those kind of things. First, there is 5G support. It's not really useful in India, but hey, it is there. Second, cell reception, call quality, they were great. I didn't face more than my usual share of dropped calls. I mean, that has more to do with where I live than the phones I test. There are a few areas in my house and my studio where I do get reception properly, and that is basically what happens with almost all phones I test, and the OnePlus 8 Pro was no different. Now, there is no headphone jack, which is something we've come to expect from flagships these days, but there are no earphones included in the box or even a dongle for that matter. With OnePlus wanting to go full-on flagship, take on Apple and Samsung, I'm surprised they didn't add a pair of Type-C bullets in the box. Maybe next time? I don't know. So what do you think? Should OnePlus have actually added Type-C bullets in the box? Or do you feel it's okay not having earphones in the box? Or maybe you feel OnePlus should probably do what Apple is expected to do with their next release and cut out the charger? Let me know whatever your thoughts are in the comments. Now, jokes apart, the user experience, it is right up there with the best iPhones and the best S20 series phones. Now, some might even say this experience is better since the OnePlus 8 Pro has one of the snappiest interfaces in Oxygen OS. OnePlus, unlike the competition, is not afraid to let its interface resemble stock. In fact, this time they've even switched Shelf out with Google Feed. I mean, if you like Shelf, you can always switch it back on, but it's Google by default. A lot of things in Oxygen OS are the way Google meant it to be. The additions like the Zen mode to take a break from everything, or the dark mode, or the live wallpaper that changes based on weather conditions, these are all nice touches that don't weigh on the interface. As always, I also really like the alert slider when I'm using OnePlus phones. It happens to be very convenient. Now, talking about things I like, the frosted glass finish to the back, it looks excellent. Now, generally glass builds, they look premium, they feel premium, but they have two major caveats. One, they are slippery, which the 8 Pro most definitely is. Now, number two, glass packs are usually fingerprint magnets. Now, that's not the case here with the OnePlus 8 Pro. The matte finish, it doesn't pick up fingerprints or smudges quite as easily. By the way, this is Gorilla Glass 5 to the back and 6 to the front. Now, some of you were asking me if the phone's weight distribution was off. The answer is no, it's pretty evenly distributed, neither top nor bottom heavy. That said, you're gonna have trouble using this phone single-handed. Given the large display it sports, you're gonna have to resort to using both hands more often than not. Now, one hand or two, however you're gonna use it, you're gonna definitely enjoy the user experience. And it's not just due to Oxygen OS. The hardware underneath is also right up there with the best flagships around. It's the Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 flagship chip that's coupled with 8 or 12 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM, 128 or 256 gigs of dual-lane UFS 3.0 storage. The battery capacity is also a very respectable 4510 mAh. In my 10 or so days using this, at 120Hz at Quad HD nonetheless, I never had to plug in the phone before the end of my day, and I'm sure most of you aren't gonna have to either. Of course, the battery life here is even better if you dial down either the resolution or the refresh rate. When it comes time to charge the 8 Pro, whether it's wired or wireless, it's warp charge either way, so rapid fast. Guys, now everything we've seen so far, now these are things we've come to expect from our OnePlus flagship. Yes, this year we have a few nice to haves, but you get what I'm saying. These are all things that we take for granted with OnePlus. Now, the one area where OnePlus usually lags behind the competition, the big boys, is with optics. Now, does that change with the 8 Pro? Well, yes and no. Okay, let me explain myself. Here we have 4 cameras. The primary is Sony's new IMX689, a 48 megapixel sensor paired with an optically stabilized f1.8 lens, and a good light, the images they come across great. Look at how this car pops. The dynamic range is also right up there with the best. The included night mode, that also works great. The sensor being quite large and the f1.8 aperture, the optical stabilization, they also help. The second sensor is an 8 megapixel telephoto. Technically it's 12 megapixels with 2x zoom, but OnePlus crops in, calls it 3x hybrid zoom and markets it as an 8 megapixel sensor. This again has a stabilized lens, f2.4. The colors, they do seem a little muted in comparison to the primary, but from a detail perspective, it's good. The wide angle, now that was the surprise. OnePlus has chosen to go with the primary sensor from the last gen, OnePlus 7T Pro, the IMX586. It's paired with the f2.2 ultra wide. Here the colors and dynamic range are pretty close to the primary. This sensor also helps shoot macro, beautiful shots. In fact, I like this implementation more than a lot of dedicated macro options. The final sensor is a color filter. This is what gave the 8 Pro its X-ray vision capabilities, but that has sadly been removed by OnePlus now. As for video, we get up to 4K at 60 FPS and the footage is excellent. There's a super stable mode too. So everything I've been saying so far has been predominantly positive, right? So why did I say this? Plus usually lags behind the competition, the big boys, is with optics. Now does that change with the 8 Pro? Well, yes and no. Because while this is the closest OnePlus have come to top tier cameras, it still feels a little lacking, a little behind. But then again, do you know what else the 8 Pro is a little behind on? In fact, a lot behind on? The price. Now the Galaxy S20 Plus starts at 74,000 rupees, the iPhone 11 Pro Max 1,07,000 rupees. The OnePlus 8 Pro, it costs roughly half of that at 55,000 rupees. Now in markets like the United States, where the 8 Pro costs $900 compared to the 11 Pro Max and the S20 Plus's price tags, $1,100 and $1,200 respectively, the price difference here, it's much higher. And given that most of the 8 Pro is right up there with the other flagships, despite OnePlus's year-on-year price hike, I feel this happens to be a good deal. Now, given the Indo-China border issues, whether you want to buy Chinese hardware or not, that is something I'm going to let you decide. But if you are looking to buy a phone from a Chinese brand, if you're okay buying OnePlus, then the 8 Pro is well worth the asking price, is what I'm saying. So that's my 2 cents on the 8 Pro. Now I want to know what you think. Leave a comment down below. Also thumbs up, thumbs down based on whatever you felt about this video. Subscribe, turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon if you haven't yet. And thanks a lot for watching. Till next time, my name's Ash. You've been watching C4E Tech and I'm signing off for now. You guys have a great day. Bye bye.